Time to prep the surface, right?
Yep. So now, now we've got everything cleaned up, dried. You know, we're going to want to use something like Geon Prep to make sure that we're getting everything off of the surface that could A, interfere with what we see, B, interfere with the polishing process.
Now, how are you going to know if your prep is sufficient or you need to break out the solvent?
Well, if we do it, if it looks like the prep is beating on the surface, we know we're going to need to go with something a little bit heavier.
This isn't an exact science,
no, it's
right?
not exact science. Right. There's nothing to measure, nothing, you know, to really know if everything's off of there. But typically speaking, if water is easily beating on there, or it just has a slick finish to it, you probably have something that's on there. And a lot of times, if it's a silicone base, it's going to take more effort, which is why we go with a solvent designed to break that down. Mm-hmm. Now with prep here, you can see I've got gloves on. This is just a isopropyl alcohol based product. It's not going to damage your hands. It's not going to, you don't have to wear a respirator or anything like that with it. I've just gotten used to using a lot of gloves with chemicals. But here, a liberal use of it. Go in, wipe everything off. We'll spray it right on the surface, wipe it down, and then we can kind of give it a feel to see if it still feels pretty slick at that point.
Gotcha. So we'll know because our hand will, oh shoot, yeah.
Still pretty slick?
I mean, we would, you know, even with just the oils in your hands, you would get that squeak.
Yep.
Whatever they put on here is still on there. Yeah.
So.
Since I washed the car, I should watch you do this part.
Yeah, and this stuff smells nice. And we probably go through more of this than any other chemical in the shop. I think they should sell it in 55-gallon drums.
We're going to do glass and everything, right?
I'm not too worried about glass at this point because we're going to get it all dirty and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I'm just worried about the paint. This isn't going to hurt any of the plastics or anything, so we're not really worried about that. You know, you really can't use too much, but you can use too little.
Mm-hmm. This is a step that I've never really done. I always go straight to polish.
Yeah, we'll do prep before polish, and then if I'm doing a multi-step, I'll compound, then I'll prep, then I'll finish polish, then I'll prep, then I'll go to coating.
I guess it's hard to assess the paint if we don't have it clean, right?
Right.
And that's where my amateur skill set, I'll go just start polish and grab, you know.
Yeah, we've seen at times too, depending on what might be on the surface, that can get in the way with your polishing process. You know, the paint can seem like it's real finicky, it doesn't want to work right. A lot of times it's not the paint, it's, you know, whatever's sitting on that surface.
Mm-hmm. There's something about, though, once we get this thing perfected, the white, you know, under lights, it just, I don't know, it looks, the depth of white is what gets me, I don't know. You know, because it's kind of boring, it doesn't have that super shine or gloss look to it, but it gets like a depth to it that we don't have right now.
Well, a lot of people think that, you know, white is white and you can't do much with it, but it's actually not the case. You can make white look really tremendous.
That scratch is
tripping
me out. I don't even know how you do that.
You know, as far as towel usage, you know, you can do one towel for the whole thing. You can do multiple towels. You don't. There's no science to it. There's no magical number. You don't have to use a different towel for every panel. Everything's clean on the surface.
I already did that.
Okay. Well, it's getting double done then.
You can just say I didn't do it right. You gotta fix it. I guess right after we're done inspecting, then we'll have to pull off these side clear film, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or, you know, whenever we get to that. Now, generally, you know, what level of correction do you guys do, like where you're doing door jams and Is that on every level, or?
No, I mean it depends on what the customer really wants out of it. You know, particularly you talking about newer cars. There's not a whole lot to do in those areas. You know, we get up into that restorative level detail. You know, we're really looking at every last spot we possibly can. If we're doing a simple one-step polish, typically speaking, we're not going to be polishing inside the door jambs.
Mm-hmm. It's a little grabbier back here, so whatever they did, they slopped it on the front, but not so much the side.
I find that hard to believe.
The kid they're paying $7.50 an hour is, you know, so that screw, they won't even see this part, so I'm not doing that.
Yep. You got to remember, those positions are typically the least paid, least trained in the entire organization.
All right, here it goes. I'm going to decide if I need to sell it or not.
Well, the next thing, now that we've got everything prepped, is, you know, going into that kind of final inspection. You can tell it's it's grabby now, as it pretty much should be. And we're going to look around for a variety of things. You know, one, we're going to look for like big straight line scratches like we see over on that side of the hood. And as we're inspecting, we want to use a variety of lights. You know, I've got the handy dandy Rupus pen light LED that works extremely well. We've got our T5 high output fluorescents up top. We've got LED lights on a stand at the same time. And one thing to keep in mind, you know, particularly if you're looking at a dark color car, you know, some people think the sunshine is the best way to inspect the car. That's not true, because there can be defects in here that I see with this light that you'll never see outside in the sunshine. If like if a black car looks bad outside, it's going to look way worse inside here with the T5s and with this. So we're going to go around, we're going to look at, identify those different problems. We know on the hood we can clearly see big sanding, you know, marks, and there's patches all over the place. If I go around the rest of the car, you know, and I'm going to inspect it, I'm going to go a little bit further away to get a bigger picture, and I'm going to get up close too so I can see a variety of different things. You know, I'm even catching some sanding marks on these edges here.
So are you going to mark the car, or are you just taking a mental note of what you're going to have to do?
I'm taking a mental note exactly to get an idea of what I have to do. Part of it is, you know, you start to learn over time how paints are going to react, or what manufacturers have what kind of paints. You know, I know if this is a lighter color BMW, I know it's going to be really hard paint. So if I see lighter stuff, I'm probably still going to have to go heavier. Usually on Porsches, it's not that bad. But what I want to see here, I want to kind of put together a mental game plan. And I may say, all right, I know I'm going to have to compound the hood. Let's look at other areas. Does the other areas look like we can probably do it with a one-step? Or are we going to have to go heavy all the way around? And I just want to identify anything that might be standing out. You know, if it's a custom color car, like we're talking about the Ferraris that go to an off-site facility, there I'm going to be looking for burnt edges because you can still find that. So as I'm going through it, if I see something like that, I might put a piece of tape over it so I know when I get back to that area, here's a warning sign. I have to really watch out here. So the biggest thing here, just identifying what kind of issues that we have. Fortunately on this car, the worst case for the most part, some sanding marks and that one bigger scratch right on top of the hood.
Yeah, luckily, I hope we can get that sucker.
Yep.
We'll see how much paint's around it.
And then, you know, once I kind of go through, I kind of get those mental notes of what levels that we're going to have to do. Then I'll start taking a look at, I'll look at paint thicknesses, break out the DOI meter, you know, see what areas of improvement that we can go for. And then we'll get into doing some test polishing sections.
Is that a Del Fesco?
Yep, this is the standard Positest DFT. You know, your more basic, it's going to measure
That thing's like, what, 800 bucks or something like that?
Yep, about 800 bucks. You get aluminum, you get regular metals, you don't get plastics and all.
I need to get one of those.
Yeah, I also have another one that runs about 3,000 bucks that will measure through carbon fiber, plastics, all that. Now, one thing about the different paint thickness gauges that you have to remember is you can't measure individual layers on metal substrates, regardless of the meter that you have. This is going to give you overall thickness. Even your $3,000 one, it will tell you individual layers on, say, bumpers or carbon fiber, but not on the metal parts. So you have to know what these numbers mean, relatively speaking. And if you measure it and it's 108, what does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? Most Porsches are a little bit on the thin side, usually in that 100 micron range. Well, see, this one is this one's very high. Let's check it.
330 microns.
And 129. That's about where it should be. 127. 112. 107. So here what I'm looking for are consistencies or inconsistencies. If I'm measuring this and it's, you know, from 105 to 115 all over, and I go over to the other side and it's measuring 200, okay, I know I've got an issue somewhere, and I'll measure more to figure out, was this one low or was that one high? And that's just going to indicate that there was a repaint in there.
Right.
From the factory, you do see repainted panels.
Yeah, or even at delivery, you know, the delivery location, right? When it comes to port, they smack a fender, they, you know, replace it. Yeah. Right,
exactly. So yeah, looking for inconsistencies. Some people might think that these are mostly used for monitoring how much material you're using. We don't use it that way in the least, but we know how much we're using. Or if I get a car in and it's measuring 70s all around, I know I'm only going to do a single stage polish. I'm not going to go multi-stage polish on that one. So I'm looking for inconsistencies. It kind of works as a insurance policy, so to speak. Something really stands out, looks a little bit different, I know I'm going to be cautious in those areas. So I'll go around, I'll kind of take some quick measurements here just to try to find, I would imagine, from what I've seen on this car, everything should be really straightforward.
Yeah.
You know, some people measure in microns, some people measure in mils. There's roughly, I think, 24.7 microns per mil.
Right.
I like going by microns because it gives me a much more accurate reading.
It's the range is wider.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, kind of taking a look at that. As for the hood, I definitely want to use the DOI meter on there to kind of find out where things are at. DOI meter is measuring specular reflectance, it's measuring gloss, it's measuring reflective image quality, all those things that a regular gloss meter doesn't tell you anything. You can have one paint that's got horrible orange peel and texture in it that has the same gloss reading as a perfectly flat. That perfectly flat, people will say that looks better. So by having those other measurements in there, that really
it's relative, right? So gloss is relative. You want to be in roughly the same spot.
Yep.
You know, on the same paint. Because if I take it on this white and the Huracan white over there,
it could be completely.
The measurement doesn't tell us anything.
Right, exactly.
It'd be like taking a car to a dyno and then going to like a different state with different temperatures on a different dyno and comparing the performance. It doesn't tell you anything.
Right, yeah. And we're looking for areas of improvement, and we'll use that like during our testing procedure to find out what's going to work best on this particular car.
So how's our depth next to our scratch
this
here?
One's probably,
we need like 400 here.
It's carbon fiber. So I have to use the different gauge.
I wonder if that's reading, because remember the roof's magnesium. So
it could be different process and everything that they use for that. Kind of what I was figuring. So I'll break out the other gauge and take some measurements up front here.
I like this machine.
They can be pretty finicky to get consistent, accurate readings, but they're definitely nice to have. They like a little water in the area. Let's see where some of the sanding marks are too. Yeah, so about 110 overall thickness, which is
Standard,
consistent
right.
with all the rest. Didn't like that one. 111 over there in the sanding area.
So what is that? So what are we gonna? What's the general? We're compounding. Let's say we're using Jescar heavy correction compound or correction compound. How much paint are we removing?
We shouldn't be removing more than about 3 or 4 microns at that point with the compounding stage.
So I mean, again, we don't that 3 stage. So we had about 35 mils of clear coat.
Yep.
So we're going to remove 10% of it or less.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Compounding.
It's when you get into heavy sanding and things like that. It doesn't take that much to remove more than is recommended over the life of the car.
So now, like, let's say your Crystal Series correction, that's going to remove 10?
8, usually 8 to 10.
So on a car with 110 mils, that's a little aggressive?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that on there. On the Corvettes, they've got a lot more film build on it, so I've got more to work with in a safe manner.
Gotcha. So doing, messing with a car with, with 110 mils or 115 mils of paint, compounding's fine.
Yep.
Probably compounding a car about 2 or 3 times in its life, maybe.
Yeah, and that's what we're thinking about too. Is like we're working on these. We're not just worried about when you're going to have it. We're worrying about the next
what
guy,
about
the next
8
guy, the
years
next
from
guy.
now, right.
Make sure you leave plenty for the next guy. I've been on the other end, finding out that the other guys didn't leave enough material to work with. That's not a fun place to be.
They wet sand out.
Yep.
They remove 20 mils of a 30 mil top coat in order to get that mirror finish, but then you can never fix it again.
Yeah, one and done.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yep.
So now we have an idea. We've got the normal amount of paint on here. We'll go in, do a couple of test spots to see exactly what it's going to take.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty confident that we're going to need to do a 2-step process on those sanding marks to get those completely out of there.
And I mean, you can even see there's a straight line, some toweling marks, some swirling, just there's a weird little thing here.
Yep.
Probably from someone, sitting on or brushing up against it or something when it was dirty.
It's not uncommon. I've been into car dealerships and I see salesmen having meetings laying against a car and stuff
Right.
up on top of it.
I would hope they wouldn't do that to this, but
it doesn't take that much. People make the mistake and think that paint is really durable. I mean, you can take a polished black paint, clean surface, clean finger, barely rub your finger across it, and you're going to scratch that surface.
I did that on my S2000. Yeah.
Well, the S2000 is ridiculously soft.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So yeah, next up, let's do some test sections, see what we come up with.
Cool. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.